Cummeragunja Reserve is an Aboriginal settlement and former mission station situated opposite the Victorian township of Barmer on the banks of the Murray River. The station was founded in June 1888 when many of the residents of the Maloga mission station grew dissatisfied with its founder, Daniel Matthews, and his authoritarian and highly religious approach to leadership. Cummeragunja was created following a successful appeal to the New South Wales government for the creation of a reserve, with the intention of producing a farm on 1,800 acres, providing a means for the local Koori community to live self-sustainably. Cummeragunja's first superintendent was George Bellinger, whose appointment came as a replacement for Daniel Matthews prior to the closure of the Maloga station. Life under the control of Bellinger proved to be disastrous for the station's residents. Illness and threats of expulsion or the removal of rations regularly plagued the residents. Following Bellinger's resignation in 1891, the station continued on in much the same traumatic pattern under a string of short-term managers, until the appointment of George Harris in 1894. Whilst Harris continued the pattern of neglect per his predecessors, he also oversaw the subdivision of the station, providing individuals and families with their own allotments to farm. 20 farm lots, each being 40 acres in size, were established at Cummeragunja. These were in addition to a small number of farms taken up in the surrounding area by those who had decided to step away from the stifling controls of mission life. Among those who chose to go it alone was George Middleton, a Yorta man, whose descendants would go on to play a range of significant roles in the push for civil rights and community development across New South Wales and Victoria. By their own hand, the community at Cummeragunja thrived in partnership with the government-appointed overseer. The station's Koori-led management committee oversaw successful commercial enterprises in the sale of wheat, wool and dairy, and conditions were improving. Station finances were being directed back into the community for community benefit, and financial successes impacted the overall health of the community, with the station's cricket and football teams proving highly successful, winning numerous competitions and challenges. The community's successes on and off the field, however, were to be short-lived. In 1909, the Aborigines Protection Act was passed, giving the Aborigines Protection Board full control over the lives of Koori people living in New South Wales. In 1915, amendments were made to the powers available to the board, which obliterated the limited freedoms that were available to the farming community at Cummeragunja, and allowed for children to be removed from their families and placed into a form of slavery. Station profits were delivered to the APB, bypassing the community, and Cummeragunja once again fell into a state of neglect. Illness due to a lack of investment into sanitation, quality housing and clean water were once again major points of concern for the community. By early 1939, Cummeragunja had experienced a number of deaths, which were directly attributed to the minimal rations, lack of sanitation, and cramped conditions the station's residents were being subjected to. Petitions and calls for change fell on deaf ears or resulted in bullying and retribution by the station manager, Arthur McQuiggan. The dire state of affairs at Cummeragunja resulted in the station's residents sending a telegram to former resident Jack Patton, whose family still resided at the station. Prior to receipt of the telegram, Patton had been working in Sydney in his capacity as co-founder and president of the Aborigines Progressive Association, and founder and editor of the first Aboriginal newspaper, the Abo Call. At Patton's urging, a majority of the station's residents packed up and crossed the river into Victoria in an act of defiance known today as the Cummeragunja Walk-Off. Jack Patton had been aware, through his role in the inquiry into the administration of the Aborigines Protection Board, of the horrors that were to come for his community. With generations of children already having been removed from their families and homes, this was to be escalated and paired with greater restrictions on the movements and affairs of Aboriginal people. The community at Cummeragunja heard Patton's words and acted upon his advice, gathering up their possessions and abandoning their homes, and crossed the Murray into Victoria in an act of defiance. Shortly after having led the first few families out of the station, Jack Patton was arrested on the grounds that he had incited Aborigines which was an arcane law even at that time in history. As he was taken away by the police, Patton gave directions to his younger brother George Patton that he should continue with the exodus, commenting that a significant amount of publicity for the plight of their people would be gained via reports of both the arrest and the ensuing walk-off. Despite the dramatic actions that took place on February 4, 1939, Cummeragunja continued to limp onward. Following the end of World War II, the government chose to hand parcels of land at Cummeragunja and other Aboriginal reserves over to the benefit of returned servicemen and their families as part of the soldier settlement scheme. This was almost a fatal blow and added further insult to what remained of a proud and once thriving community. Not only was more of their home being taken from them, Cummeragunja residents who had served their country were forced to look on in despair as those they had fought alongside were being handed parts of their home, which they themselves were excluded from. As government failure after failure mounted and the years passed, Cummeragunja continued to remain an important place in the hearts of the Yorta Yorta people, despite being reduced to a small remnant of what it once was. Throughout its history, Cummeragunja has never seen its population rise beyond 350 people. Despite this, it has contributed significantly to Australian politics, sports and cultural achievement. It's given us musical acts, the Sapphires, Jimmy Little and Benny Walker, our first ever world champion, sprinter Lynch Cooper, and Bobby McDonald, who invented the crouch start used in athletics. Jack Patton, Marge Tucker, William Cooper, Bill Onus and many more paved the way for freedom and liberty for Aboriginal people. They were followed by Molly Dyer, Naomi Myers and Cecil Patton, instrumental in setting up services for children, health and legal affairs respectively. Sir Doug Nicholls was the first Aboriginal football star, and in time would go on to serve as Governor of South Australia. Lynn Onus showed us the beauty of our country, and Bill Onus was the first Aboriginal entrepreneur. The list of achievements of Cummeragunja residents and their descendants is long and continues to enrich the nation. In 1983, following a long campaign, the title deeds to what remained of Cummeragunja were finally returned to the Yorta Yorta people via a newly created Yorta Yorta Land Council. A number of Yorta Yorta people continue to live there today.